Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late, I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of the flow, yeah.
Hey y'all, welcome to the second episode of HWP Extra of 2025. Of course, I'm your girl Stephanie Hardy, host and creator of HWP Extra, and co-host of Steph and Cat Talk Wow, and writer for Daily DDT and color commentator featured in various promotions. And for this episode, I decided to do something completely different and just be bold and just strike out and talk about something that really blessed my soul at the very beginning of the year and something that has carried me through in my life. And before we get to that, I have to introduce my fabulous guests who are going to help me talk about this amazing subject. First off, we have one half of those wrestling girls, an absolute pioneer for Black women in wrestling media and just an all-around amazing person. She is also a social media producer and creator for Hot 97 and just an amazing person. She is Krista B. Thank you so much for coming on this show. And then finally we have Vaughn, who is King Vaughn Jr., and he is the host of the Victorious Ones podcast. And he is a great supporter of a lot of people in Black wrestling media while also maintaining his own platform himself and just an all around amazing person. Thank you guys so much for coming on tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us. I'm excited to talk about Luther Vandross.
Oh, man, I'm ready for it. Come on.
Yes, and I'm so happy and thrilled to be talking with you guys about Luther simply because a lot of the times, whenever I talk about the amazingness that is Luther Vandross, it's always with people like family members who are a little bit older than me or people who are, who were alive during his boom period and during his time and all of the above. But to get to talk about it with people who appreciate it, who are around the same age as me, is a very rare thing and it's very special, definitely for HWP, because most of the time, a lot of the time, we talk wrestling in all of our platforms and such. So to be able to talk about something different is really amazing. So, yes, guys, we are talking about the acclaimed documentary Luther Never Too Much, which aired on television on New Year's Day on CNN and on the own Oprah Winfrey Network. But it was released in theaters and select theaters across the country, I believe, last fall. And it even aired, and they also had like a screening for it here in Birmingham as well, but I didn't get to make it towards it. So I guess, for me, I was just like, I think I'll just catch it on television. And I am really happy that we get to discuss it. So, Krista, I'm going to start with you. When was the first time you heard Luther Vandross, and how did you feel when you heard him sing?
I don't know. So, growing up in a Black household, Saturdays you
Yes.
get up to clean and you hear all the oldie but goodies. But my aunt, when she used to pick us up from school or drop off, we used to drive home at night. She used to listen to 98.7 Kiss FM.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time, it was just like, why are we listening to that? Like, we want to listen to, you know, music of our generation, but it was a more of an older station. And then when Kiss FM left, she started listening to 107.5 WBLS. Full circle, I work there now. But it was on those stations where we would listen to like Luther Vandross. Never Too Much was literally one of the first songs I feel like I've heard. Along with If This World Were Mine, along with Superstar. Um, and I've always loved his voice. His voice was something special, something unique. And then when he, you know, came out again in the late or the early 2000s with, you know, Take You Out, Dance with My Father, it was just, okay, there's a resurgence of Luther Vandross, but I don't think there was ever a time where I haven't listened or haven't heard a Luther Vandross song, whether it's a remake, whether it's him, whether, you know, I don't think there's ever been a time where I haven't listened to him.
Right. And I think that's, poignant the way that you put that. Even though you said, you can't exactly remember the first time you heard him, you do know that his voice was ever present in your life. And funny enough, down here in Birmingham, we have a 98.7 Kiss FM too, that's been around for a very long time and it's still around to this day. And it used to have the Tom Joyner Morning Show on it.
Yes, we used to
And
listen to Tom Joyner up here too. They
yes.
used to simulcast, but yeah, definitely Tom Joyner Morning Show up here, 98.7 Kiss FM. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we want to listen to, at that time, again, we want to listen to Hot 97, work there as well. You know, we don't want to listen to Kiss FM. We listen to all of the new music that's out right now. And this was like, what, 95, 96, 97. So, you know, we listen to B.I.G. and we listen to 112. We listen to like the all hip hop and R&B. We don't listen to the old stuff. You know, as kids, we listen to what's the part of your era. You don't want to listen to the old, but the old cultures you. Like, it gives you a sense of it gives you that a sense of history, like knowing where your history comes from. Because now going like listening to that music, I'd rather listen to that of the 80s and what we have of the 90s and early 2000s, because sometimes I don't know what we're listening to today. And I'm just like, dang, I sound like my parents. But yeah, that's just the fact, the truth of the matter. Like, and so throwing a Luther classic any day, I even have a Luther Pandora station because it's just like so timeless.
Period. Now, Vaughn, can you place the first time you listened to him, or
Yeah, so as far as like the first time I heard him, usually I've heard him in passing, because well, not in passing, but the thing is, like, because like my parents are baby boomers themselves. They're within the same age range as Luther anyway. He's like maybe like 2 or 3 years older than them. But the point is though, over here, like like a lot of stuff that we listen to, how you talked about Kiss, whatever it is, like Tom Joyner. For here in DC, they had 102.3. So a lot of times, this station will play his music, or WHUR 96.3, Howard University's radio station, and so and even Donnie Simpson, like when he's on WPGC 95.5 over here, he'd play a lot of Luther stuff. And so like growing up, it was like I couldn't tell, like exactly like sometimes what time period it was. All I know was it was classic. So I found out later on, oh, this is, stuff from the 80s. Just like Krista, a lot of stuff I was listening to, like especially in 95.5, I really listened, to B.I.G., Tupac, stuff like that, or, whatever, as far as like our contemporary type of music. But as I got older, like I learned to appreciate him more. And then even when he came back out, like Chris was talking about, like, I Can't Take You Out, that was his, his rejuvenation. But it's not a time in my life where I haven't, come across a Luther Vandross song. House Not a Home, Never Too Much, Superstar, stuff like that. So his catalog speaks for itself.
Absolutely. And what I will say, I think my musical journey was very backwards, in the sense that I was listening to gospel first before I was able to really listen to anything else. And I'm happy, it was that way. But when a lot of people were listening to like the Biggies and the Aaliyahs and stuff like that, like I didn't know who a lot of these people were until later in life. So there's a sense of twistedness that I had in my musical journey where it was gospel and then it was R&B and pop and then it was rap and hip hop and stuff. So the first time I had heard of Luther Vandross was when I was looking around in my house and my mom had cassette tapes just laying around. And I looked at the pictures of this man and I was just like, okay, well, this is somebody that my mom really likes because she had a bunch of cassettes. And so around the time I got exposed to Luther Vandross was when Ruben Studdard was competing on American Idol, and he's from Birmingham originally. And because of that time, everybody was voting for him. We was going real hard for him down here because we wanted him to win. And one of the best covers he ever had was a Luther Vandross song. So hearing that, and then also hearing the Luther Vandross songs playing on a loop on 98.7 because of Ruben singing his songs. That's how I got exposed to him. So I was just like, okay. And so now I'm listening to Superstar. I'm listening to A House Is Not a Home. I'm listening to all these other songs because someone else is singing them. And of course, ultimately, Ruben won that second season, even though a lot of people argue it should have been Clay. We voted. It can't be changed. Um, so yeah, at the end of the day, that was my exposure to Luther was through my mother and through the radio and through Ruben Studdard. So big shout out to them for that. And to get more so into the documentary itself, this documentary was directed by Dawn Porter, who is a director that I hadn't really heard of before, but she comes highly respected when it comes to her filmmaking work, and a lot of people were very happy that she made this documentary. And it was produced and executive produced by a lot of different people, but one of the main people who was listed as an executive producer was Jamie Foxx, who is of course is an Oscar-winning actor, singer, writer, producer, comedian, all of the things. And he was also in the documentary too, sort of sharing his exposure and his journey as a Luther Vandross admirer as well. So, yeah, just looking at the way that it was crafted by both of these people and also the other people who worked behind the scenes on it, you could tell that it was made with a level of cultural awareness and a level of love that and authenticity. And I really appreciated that from them. Do you guys have anything to add?
I love the fact that, and what when you watch a documentary, everybody who knows that said person is in it. Like, it's too overpowering with celebrities and superstars. I love the fact that it was only those who that everybody matters, but it was only those who were like you had Jamie Foxx, who expressed like he was a fan, and I didn't know that he had a hand in being a producer in the documentary. But then you also had somebody like Mariah Carey, who spoke about the first time she performed with him on stage and how he was giving her all these accolades, and she was like, "Hey, I'm just starting out in this sense, and I've never performed for somebody or with somebody at that big of a stage at that moment, that time." And then it was mostly like the people that he grew up with, that he knew when he was in his first group, Listen Brother, when those who were closest to him. You had Valerie Simpson in the documentary. Though I can't think of their name. Carlos, I believe one of the guys' names was Carlos, who was in Listen Brother with him. You had those people. It was really short. It was a really small group of people who were in it, but it made it all work, and it made it tie together because those are the ones who really told Luther's story the best.
Yeah, and as far as the Jamie Foxx connection, it's amazing that he has his hand tied into this, because for those who already know this, the song "Slow Jams," like the line where it says, she says she wants to Marvin Gaye some Luther Vandross with the sample for "House Not a Home." So it's kind of like full circle moment, and I like how he was heavily involved in that. Told his story about Luther, how they had Dionne Warwick in there as well. People from Luther's original group, like his friend guy named Fonzie Thornton. People like who spoke very highly of him and told all these different details about his story. And like, even though I like certain stories I heard about, I knew, like the Sesame Street thing. When he first started, and just how instrumental, like he was in having a hand in so many different songs. I didn't want to go too far into it, but that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, it was so beautiful, seeing the amount of people that they did get. But it's like you said, Krista, it was a small circle. And I think that in the case of this documentary, less is more, because of course, over the years in the years since we've seen so many of our legends pass, we've seen so many people do documentaries and do interviews about these people who might not have fully known them the way that they thought that they knew them, and they speak on them as if that they were like so close, but in actuality that wasn't the most authentic relationship that they were given. And I think that in this case, less being more definitely worked out, because this is a man who is, by all intents and purposes, who was so talented, and he had a close knit, set of people, because, there was so much about him that he just did not want to be revealed to the public, which we will get into later. And also because, he was just very private, it seems. So the idea that the people that were chosen to be a part of it were a part of it was really great. And just seeing a baby Mariah Carey, like who we know as the Queen of Christmas, at this point of our lives, but also forgetting that this woman really has a catalog in and of herself, got her start as, a cover singer with the duet of Endless Love. And seeing, Jamie Foxx with that full circle moment, like you said, Vaughn. Slow Jams is one of my favorite songs ever, and from a very special place. And it's just, and so the idea of seeing all of those people, who worked in music back then, even his background singers talking about him, and people he sang with at the start of his career be a part of it, was really good too. And I did not know the Sesame Street part. There was a lot that I learned from this documentary. And I feel like a great documentary is one that teaches you things that you already knew about one of your favorite people, but it also teaches you things that you might not have known. And I did not know that he was from New York. I did not know that he was born in New York. I was just like,
Why
wait,
do that?
really? Of course. Absolutely, Krista. Of course, it wouldn't have been any other way.
Right.
He was from the Bronx, I think they said. And that's a part of New York I have not visited yet. But, just the thing that I love the most in the documentary as well was them sort of expressing what the world, or what the US looked like, and just how music was sort of evolving in terms of, the different regions, and what R&B was sounding like at a certain time. And of course, the most dominant force at that point in Black music was Motown. And but then you also had the Philly sound in the mixture of it all as well. And so Luther was finding his voice, as a young child. And they also mentioned him growing up with his family, his mother and his father, and his siblings, and how his father, even though he worked a regular job, he was also a singer as well. And I was like, okay, now, so you're telling me it's in the blood. Okay. So, yeah. And him moving through and then growing up and realizing that music was what he wanted to do. And even while he was in college, he realized that, no, I really want to sing and pursue this. And his family actually being supportive, his mother being supportive of his music career, that was a very important thing. And his mother spoke lovingly of him, even while he was going through his sickness, which we will discuss later. And even after his passing, she spoke very lovingly of his career and was a supportive force for him. And that was very great as well. So hearing how he got started and just knowing that he wanted to go all in immediately was just really great. So
Yeah.
Krista, how did you feel, already knowing he was from New York, but hearing how he got started and how he wanted to go all in on his career?
Well, being from New York is really, I really firmly believe this now. Like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And Luther kind of epitomized that, because of the fact, like, he knew that he wanted to sing. Like he said, he didn't have a plan B. Like, going to the school in what was it, Kalamazoo, Missouri, it was not for him. And he just knew, like, he wanted to be a singer. So he went every route that he could possibly go in order to make sure that he was a singer. He went the route of doing jingles. He went the route of singing in a group. He was in another group called Luther. Like, he was writing. He did everything he needed to do until, and I tweeted about this and I spoke about this on the those wrestling girls side, that everybody needs a friend like Roberta Flack. Because if it wasn't for Roberta Flack, Luther, we would have never known the Luther that we have, or that we had. Because she saw something in him, and she was just like, yeah, no, like, you're going to sing the song, you're going to be in the front. Like, you have to stop, making yourself so small, or, I see this in you, so now I'm going to push you. If you have friends like that who can see the best in you, although it's there, like, you have the potential, and you're just trying to figure out how to get there, you have a friend who's willing to push you forward, push you there, by all means, go for it. And thank you, Roberta Flack, wherever you may be, for doing that for us, because we knew Luther had a drive that he wanted to sing. As Vaughn said, he was in that group, and they did the Sesame Street. They sang a lot of the Sesame Street songs during the 70s, and it was a shame because even though Luther was like the main voice, one of them, I think it was Carlos, who said, you can't look at Luther as the main character in this group. And it was two factors. He was a dark male, and he was a big male. And because if he was dark skinned, because he was a heavy set man, everybody was just like, okay, he's the voice, but we can kind of like leave him ajar in a sense. Like, we can leave him in the back in a sense, but we can bring his voice forward. And it sucked because throughout his career, unfortunately, his weight was really in the public eye more so than his voice.
Yeah. So as far as that's concerned, like it was great to see Luther's origin story, in terms, and also, like Krista said, he personified that, that New York work ethic, that type of attitude, like, you can make it here, make it anywhere. And so, like, in terms of him, not selling for a plan B, I remember even Eddie Murphy said it in an interview before. We'll get to that in a minute. But as far as Eddie had an interview before, like, saying that with Arsenio, he was saying like, look, I don't know, I don't have a plan B. It's just like this, or nothing else. And so Luther kept that same energy, and in terms of those two strikes that he had against him, because of that, it gave him the drive to to supersede, to over excel, because when you have people like that who have who have those type of strikes, or like those type of things that society holds against them, it's like that they make up for that. They make up for whatever that is when it comes to their talent, when it comes to the type of style that they have, when it comes to presentation. So because of that, like that came out in Luther's work. And I like how not only Roberta Flack, but also David Bowie gave Luther a platform and opportunity. So like, in terms of him, there you go. In terms of him singing background, I knew about that. That's why I've always had the utmost respect for David, because the thing is, like, he gave Luther a platform, and even let him do his own set, like, during a tour, because he was like, look, this is what your future is going to be. So get used to it. So you're gonna this is going to be what who you're going to be, you like moving forward. And so and like I said, the type of impact that he was having in the background before he became a name in the forefront, like I said, it just speaks volumes to the imprint that he has in so many different facets of music.
Yes, absolutely. And in just mentioning Roberta Flack and just having her in the documentary, and just talking about how she saw how talented he was and felt like, look, you really need to believe in yourself and put yourself out there, and not just be the background singer. Because in the doc, they mentioned how when she wasn't able, well, he mentioned in an archival footage that whenever she would do interviews and she wasn't able to come to the sound checks for the rehearsals, he was the one who was basically, directing the background singers to do things and the instrumentalists to do their thing. And he would sing the part like the lead part. And so she would come in and hear him doing this. And she was just like, okay, well, since you got all this together, then you need to do your own thing. And essentially, Luther said that she fired him from singing background. But I think it's, she was really propelling him forward because she really, like y'all said, she saw greatness within him. And like you said, Vaughn, with that work ethic that he had and trying to work past societal disadvantages, because let's be real, like being bigger and also being darker skinned as a Black person, it's not really a disadvantage. It's just a problem that other people create and put upon you. But really, it's not a problem at all. He utilized and he worked so hard with his opportunities that he couldn't be denied. And that's something that I greatly admire in any person, but definitely in him, because he knew his gift. He knew what he had. He had the ear, he had the work ethic and the talent. All he needed was the push, and Roberta Flack gave him that push. And Krista, just to let you know, Roberta Flack is still with us. She is still alive. And even though,
I know, I'm just like wherever she may be, like not in the sense of like.
No, I'm sorry.
I know. I'm just like, hey, girl, wherever you at, if you listen to this, thank you.
Yes.
But
DC's own, by the way.
Right, but the fun fact about David Bowie, I was in a journalism class, one of my journalism classes in grad school, and it was one of my favorite classes. And my professor was like, "Yeah, Luther Vandross sang background for David Bowie," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, you're a liar, Kevin. What are you talking about? His name is Kevin. She was like, no. And the only reason why I know this is because he grew up in the same neighborhood as Bruce Springsteen in New Jersey. So he's like a huge Bruce Springsteen fan and, all of that. And I remember having that conversation. Like, I didn't know that. So, everybody's pulling out their laptops, just Googling to see what. And I think it was because we was reading something based on David Bowie and Luther Vandross or something like that at that time. And that's when it came up. Hey, P. That's when it came up. But yeah, and I love how during, when New York kind of shut him out in a sense in the music industry, or when it didn't work out for the first group that he was a part of just didn't work out. And then the group Luther was kind of on the rise in a sense. I love how David Bowie, I love how Mick Jagger loved the sound. They came because they loved that Philly sound. And that's how, David Bowie became. And I remember one day watching it, Luther was talking about how he didn't know David Bowie was in the room. And he was doing some type of runs or ad libs or something like that. And he heard something that David didn't hear. And it's like Luther became that musical director in a sense, or the person who started to be the opening act for him, because it's just you have this talent, you hear everything. Even in the very beginning, this is where that New York grit comes from. When he went to his friend's house and he asked his mother for $20 or $25 for a pair of shoes, and he said it in Spanish, in the most broken type of Spanish you can ever say it, because Luther didn't speak Spanish, and the mom, who only spoke Spanish, was just like, get this man his $25 so he could get them shoes for your group. So even that hustler's mentality, it's definitely a New York thing. Sorry, we really can't share it. I don't know. That's just what it is. And it was just amazing to see how you had people who was David Bowie was huge in the 70s. Mick Jagger, Rolling Stones, huge in the 70s and 80s. Oh, David was huge in the 80s as well. All of those, Paul McCartney, all of those people wanted to work with Luther, wanted to be a part of that Philly sound, wanted to learn and immerse themselves instead of taking over. And I love that. And I feel like Luther was a little bit too sassy to let anybody bully him.
That's right.
Because when he was like, why is your name Luther? Why is the group named after you? Why is the group named Luther? He said, because I write all the songs, to produce all the songs. You're going to give me my credit when credit is due.
Exactly. I'm him.
I'm him.
He said, I'm him back in the 70s.
I'm him. That's it.
Yes, literally. Anything you want to add, Vaughn?
Yeah, so as far as that, it's like when you have noteworthy names like Bowie, the Rolling Stones, and stuff like that. It's like when you certain people, it's just like when you know music, you know, this part ain't even it's out the window when it comes to them. If you know if you're really smart about it, right? And so as far as Bowie, um, I found out like later on after he died that he was actually on an episode of Soul Train back in like the 70s. And also little quick note, the song Fame was also in the movie Next Friday. Little side note. But in terms of in terms of Luther's determination, in terms of his drive, in terms of his work ethic, like I said, you know that definitely came out in full form, and you could definitely tell that he was someone you know who was not going to take no for an answer. You know what I mean? And the thing about it was that like he was like, look, I'm gonna make myself a name. I'm gonna, you know, like I said, be instrumental when it comes to songwriting, when it comes to arrangements, you know what I mean? And to the point where this dude's name was even in the credits before he even had his own first solo album. So, you know what I mean? So like him singing for like background for Bette Midler and stuff like that. So, you know, it's like I said, this was his training ground. All this type of stuff that he was doing, all this was Luther's training ground to what we would get by the time we get to the 80s. And so this was training day. All this was preparation for what we would get later.
Yes, absolutely. And Krista, you mentioning that journalism class thing where your teacher said that he was in the same neighborhood as Bruce Springsteen, that reminds me of the time I found out that Eddie Kendricks of the Temptations actually didn't live that far from my grandma. I was like, "Excuse me?" I
Wait a
wanted to
minute, excuse
die.
me?
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I
like
love that.
Eddie Kendrick, and I believe maybe two other Temptations are from Birmingham or from Bessemer, Alabama. And I think Eddie Kendrick lived in the Inslee portion, which is one of our 99 neighborhoods. And his son actually went to my parents' high school. So, and
Mm.
we have a park named after him, I believe, and another street in downtown, I believe, named after him as well. So, yeah, like when I found out he was from here, I couldn't believe it. I was like, you, what?
It
Grandma,
gives you
what?"
a sense of like knowing, like, all right, so you know, Brooklyn, we have Biggie Smalls, we have Jay-Z, you know, then you
Mhm.
got people, hip hop started in the Bronx. It's just like you have a sense of entitlement when you know like these things or these people. Like you can't tell me nothing. And they be like, oh, everybody from New York always got reminded from New York, they got reminded from Brooklyn. Absolutely.
Of
I
course.
stand on that hill. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm not scared of nobody. I'm not scared of nothing. We got this, that, and the third. If it wasn't for us, y'all wouldn't have had that. Like it gives you a sense of entitlement or a sense of some type of chip on your shoulder, knowing that, you know, you had Eddie Kendrick and some of the Temptations. You got Roberta Flack, and don't let me start talking about the DC music that's down there.
Oh,
Like
Jesus.
Roberta Flack's
it's
from
so
there.
legendary. Now, if you find somebody who's literally from no name Utah, they're gonna period, Theodore.
Hey, Theodore, thank you for watching.
Cause never me. Like you're gonna sit here and it's like no name Utah where the population is 1,500 people, and out of that 1,500, 3 of them become famous. You're gonna ride that wave. You're going to ride that wave. So I love the fact like I can talk about Luther Vandross being from New York. I can talk about, you know, Biggie Smalls growing up right downtown, or I can talk about the places that Jay-Z has been to because I've driven through them neighborhoods like Marcy Projects in the Style, going up and down Marcy. Like I went to school. Like I can do that and be like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Now for others, it's like, can you explain this? And I'm just listen. Can't help you there. It's too much to explain. You got to be from to know it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, so definitely because Roberta Flack, like I said before, she's from Washington D.C. Marvin Gaye was from D.C. You know what I mean? So like, can't nobody tell me nothing about that. Fun fact as far as New York, there's a guy that I go to church with. He actually, you know, somehow like he's from New York. He's from Queens, so like somewhere or another, he somehow like knows LL Cool J or something. You know what I mean? So like in terms of in terms of like that 6 degrees of separation type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like in my aspect, can't nobody tell me nothing either. You know what I mean? So so as far as like when you know what you know, you know what I mean? Kevin Durant's from my area as well. So it's just like, hey, you know what I mean? So like it builds up that type of confidence. Like, you know, like I said, I have nothing to fear at all whatsoever. You know, so it's just like, you know, that you can take certain stands when you know who you are and when you know where you're from and what builds your character. So.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Nobody can take it away from you. Home is home and it's home for a reason. So, and also speaking of home, finding out that Luther Vandross wrote Brand New Day from The Wiz. Come on.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that from
I
jump.
just
Like,
like
first of all, you hear him singing it. See, I am a huge Michael Jackson fan. That's just
mhm.
me and my daddy, huge Michael Jackson fan. Like, so I always had this running joke. Like, my daddy had a connection with the cable company because every holiday we're either watching the Jackson American Dream or Streetwalker or like the long versions of Bad and Thriller and stuff. Like every holiday. So when The Wiz came out, of course, I'm going to watch it because Michael Jackson is the Scarecrow. I don't care how many people say it was whack. I don't care how many people say it was horrible. I don't care how many people, whatever, y'all not cultured. That's it. Go put more seasoning and salt and pepper on your food and leave us alone. But then I think I was like watching like a documentary or whatever the case may be like that. But even Luther was singing in the movie. Like you heard his voice. Like Luther's voice is so distinct that you just know that it's him. So yeah, I already knew that he wrote that. Like I knew that for a fact. So when I was at the Whitney Museum last weekend with my friends, they have an Alvin Ailey section. Like the whole 3rd floor is about Alvin Ailey. And I'm like, yo, I need to go home and watch The Wiz now. Because not only do I get to hear Luther sing Brand New Day, I get to see these Alvin Ailey performers do their thing in that part. Because who better but us to do it? Okay.
Exactly. And
I
Alvin
knew that.
Ailey, like those dancers, even to this day, they eat everything they do. So I've seen them perform, and Lord Jesus, they're so amazing. Like I can't.
I think I would cry
Um.
actually seeing it in person. And I went to when I
Oh
went to undergrad. My undergrad was a few blocks up from the Alvin Ailey Dance Institute.
wow.
Yeah, in the city. Yes, and I never went. I'm just like, damn, like now I low key want to go. But yeah.
Yeah, like I saw them in undergrad when they went on tour, and they came through Kentucky, and I saw them, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, we have to go see this now." And seeing Revelations in person, it will bring you to tears. So, yes, it was amazing. So, moving forward, with talking about the start of Luther's solo career, we get to his debut album, Never Too Much. And the thing that gagged me was never too much is just in your bones as a Black person. It's in your life. You hear it at every get together, you hear it at every barbecue, you hear it at everything, right? Where Black people, every party, whatever. But the idea that this man wrote this song, performed this song, basically composed the song, and this was his first single on his first album. And then you have Don't You Know That on the same album too. Two songs that eat you up. Like, excuse me. Your
Like,
first
who
album?
told you to do this? Like, who told you when you went solo to sit here and give a no skip album
0.
like this? Like, no one told you to sit here and be in your Black greatness as you were to give us Never Too Much, Don't You Know. Like, when I used to, well, I still skate, hearing Never Too Much of the skating ring on the Saturday, child, you would, at a barbecue. Like, I can't go to a barbecue and y'all don't play Never Too Much because at the end of the day, I'm leaving because it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
There's
I
certain
wouldn't.
songs that you have to play at a barbecue for it to be known as a Black barbecue, and Never Too Much by Luther Vandross is on that list. So for Luther to do that to us, sir,
Came out the gate swinging.
Out the gate swing.
That's that New York
No,
shit.
wasn't
We don't
playing no
care.
game.
Straight up.
We don't
drop kick.
care. That is
No
that New
games
York
at
right
all.
there.
And in the documentary, Marcus Miller, who performed with Luther for many years, talked about how he had the sound of Never Too Much in his head, and how, and just the idea that, he had this musical sense of hearing the bass line and how it was supposed to be, and how it's supposed to be this hard driving thing, and how different it was in comparison to what was being played at the time. And it just coming on, and then you can see him in the music video, just singing the song and just going super fast and da 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 da, and him having all this sass and all of this confidence, knowing that he's eating us up in this music video. It's just like the most insane thing ever. And I remember the moment I realized I deeply loved this song was when it was in Think Like a Man. Like when the song was in Think Like a Man, then all of a sudden all I heard was dun 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 dun, and it hit my soul because I was away from home. I was in college and I was in Kentucky, and I was missing the music of home so much that once I finally watched this movie and that song hit, I was like, oh, that's when I realized I couldn't live without it in my life. So the idea that that's his first single,
Oh my gosh,
Jesus.
yes.
And
Debut
that's something
is
I didn't
absolutely
even know. I didn't know that was his first single because it just sounds like, although he's been in the music game for so long, it just sounds like something that'll come off of his second album or third album. For him to be
Hmm.
that's the first single, never knew that.
it was all about making the best first impression. He nailed it, over delivered on that impression. So like when Marcus, his guitar player, was talking about the sound that couldn't get out, I can relate. Like when it comes to even drawing, there's like ideas I got to put on paper. And so for this to be his very first impression, this dude had a home run in the very beginning, even in the video. They in the video they even skating. Just little side note with that. But and like even when I look at the album cover, right? So I was thinking I had an idea of doing like a design for a shirt, and like recreating and having Big E, with like a pretty much redo that. And so like that type of thing. And so talk about a brand new day, right? Little full circle. But yeah, but in terms of that, I mean, if you want to talk about the KO, that album itself from beginning to end is a straight up TKO.
Yes, he had a point to prove, y'all. And he proved it, and it was very successful. And in the Black community, of course, it was being played, and of course, still being played to this very day. They even used it in a Google Doodle for his 70th heavenly birthday. And I was so excited, just to see, in the doodle, them just showing all the ways in which his music touched different people while they were driving in the car, or even at get-togethers and block parties and everything, and showing illustrations of him on stage. It was just such a beautiful tribute, even with that. So the song definitely aged incredibly well, and the album ages incredibly well too. So just the idea that he came out with a point to prove and just everything to give. But of course, with a level of fame and a level of drive and a level of music that you're putting out constantly, and with the level of exposure that you're getting, and with all the albums that he made, I put the second one up here because, of course, this is the album cover for Forever, for Always, for Love. But as you can see, like we mentioned previously, he was darker skinned, and we did mention that he did struggle with his weight a bit. So as he gained more and more success in the Black community, there were people who saw that his weight would be up and down, and would say sort of unkind things about his weight and how he looked. And one of them being Eddie Murphy and his Delirious comedy special, which, of course, back then, there was levels of comedy that was acceptable for back then, whereas now if you were to say anything like that, it wouldn't be kosher. But one of the things that people have joked about over the years, even into the 90s, you have people joking about Big Luther and Little Luther and how there's a difference. But of course, if you listen to the music, there was no difference. But let's just but whatever. um How did it make you guys feel in the documentary when you heard the struggles that he faced, and how he utilized his own sense of humor to rise above it, even though it was hard at certain times?
Well, I was one of those people out of probably pure ignorance now and pure like for comedic value to be like, this big Luther, that little Luther. Like I was one of them people just because of something that I've seen. Like you said, Eddie Murphy's Delirious. Like they pointed out Cedric Entertainers on the Kings of Comedy. I was one of those people. However, seeing it in the documentary, it kind of hit like, yo, like you can't be a part of the ignorance because Luther's voice, though his weight may have went up and down and fluctuated, though people may not have realized, like Amy, I didn't realize that he was going through, excuse me, he had this obsession with food. He had this unhealthy relationship with food. He was also a diabetic. I didn't realize like that was the cause of it. It was just like, growing up in the 90s, you didn't have much. You didn't really have cell phones and internet and stuff like that to see like, oh, this is what's happening. You didn't really have those conversations either. So to learn, like he was really struggling. He used joking as an outlet to combat what he was going through or to mask what he was going through. It set a perspective for me like, yeah, I'm grown now. Like I can have a body fluctuating. I could wake up one day and, be really big and people make fun of my weight, so it just had me like, damn, like I had to throw my apologies to Luther, although he don't know me, like my bad, Luther, like I would never sit here, like, cause your music is timeless regardless. Like the amount of Luther Vandross songs I have on my phone right now, timeless. Like the weight should never mattered between the weight and his relationship status or his, this should have never mattered. It should matter like who's producing the greatest music, who's putting out the greatest songs, how Luther has become a household staple, household name. That's what mattered, and that's what we're fans of.
So yeah, I mean, you know what? To be honest with y'all, this is one of the parts I've been looking forward to talking about the most, because Luther's clapback game is on one. Because the thing about it is that for one, we all heard the jokes about Big Luther, Little Luther. That's like a staple when it comes to us as far as the Black community. You know what I mean? Like those type of punchlines. Little did I know that the genesis of it was Delirious, right? So, but anyway, like I said, I like how Luther clapped back on it because, because they talked about his concert, how he found out that Eddie's name was on the list. He was like, look, I don't want to let Eddie Murphy down. So because of that, obviously gets this huge prop, like this giant bucket of KFC. And so then he starts singing the KFC jingle, to go along with that. I was like, the way he, turned what was a struggle for him and like weaponized in his favor, if you will, excuse the expression. Like I said, that speaks volumes. And I think it's very ironic. I think it's almost downright hilarious that Eddie would make a joke like that in Delirious, but then over a decade later, he does a movie called The Nutty Professor, where his character. So, I mean, come on now, you know what I mean? So, like, isn't it funny how that ends up turn around later on? But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I said, as far as that, knowing what we know now, like I said, apologies for ignorance, because when you know better, you do better. So like I said, big ups to to Luther for for having a sense of humor. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Also, Jamie Foxx touched on it too. It was just like, if Luther would have just said this, like, we're gonna love you regardless. You understand, Luther? We're gonna love you regardless. But if you would have just said, oh yeah, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm going through, the jokes would have ceased. Like now it's coming from a real serious side of things instead of a side of just jokes and laughter. Because yeah, and I wholeheartedly watch Delirious and Raw. Like absolutely. I know them stand-ups word for word, like verbatim. And yeah, when he talked about Luther, but Eddie Murphy talked about Luther, he talked about Michael Jackson, he talked about Stevie Wonder, he talked about Teddy Pendergrass, he talked
Everybody.
about everybody. So for Luther Vandross to have that sense of humor, it was literally a defense mechanism. And I want to kind of attribute it to being back from New York, because New York, like, you can't really be soft. Like, you gotta have tough skin, because somebody's gonna cut your ass every day. Sorry for cursing stuff. Somebody's gonna cut your behind every day. Like, that's just how, community is out here. That's just how, or it was. I don't know what it is with these kids now. I tend to mind my business. But yeah, that's just how it is. And also Eddie Murphy's from Brooklyn.
I was going to say that exactly.
Eddie Murphy's from Brooklyn, so it's just
really didn't know that.
Eddie Murphy's from Brooklyn. Chris Rock is from Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I knew Chris Rock was from Brooklyn. I didn't know Eddie Murphy was from
Eddie Murphy
Brooklyn.
grew up in Brownsville, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. It's a New York connection.
Okay, it's like one New Yorker cutting ass on, like, your friend cutting your ass. Like, that's just how New Yorkers get like, that's just how it is sometimes. It's either you take it or you don't take it. You don't take it, you either throwing hands, like, because you're not going to nobody see you cry.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just because it's like to the point where after Eddie, now I got like, once the other one started doing it, now it's gotten to the point where it's like, all right,
now you're bullying.
Now you're bullying. Now you're just straight up trolling, like a bunch of Twitter bullying type of stuff, like in these group pages. Now it's gotten to that point after the Eddie part. All right, now it's like, you know what? It ain't even funny no more. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys mentioned that, because of course, hearing how much of a sense of humor Luther had, like, that made me happy in knowing that, he was very silly, because I'm a very silly person. So I'm just like, seeing him be very silly just made him feel more relatable to me. But at the same time, using your sense of humor to laugh through it it's definitely a defense mechanism that can work. But I know, as a person, as a softie, as the softie in the room, um hearing stuff like that can hurt. And for me, it's just, knowing that people were sort of doubling down on asking about him, even in interviews, and making rumors about him, saying that if he, gained a lot of weight, then something was wrong, or if he lost a lot of weight, then something was wrong. I feel like in some cases in the Black community, I feel like us joking about it is like, sometimes it can be like disguised as concern, but in actuality it can be unkind, because I can't tell you how many times I had heard weird things when I started gaining weight. I was a little smaller around like high school into like my first year of college, but then when I started gaining weight, I started hearing it from everybody. And it's just like, bruh, like, I'm not entirely sure if anything is wrong with me. I think my metabolism just slowed down, whatever. And I love food, but at the end of the day, people's lives are people's lives, and we are all human beings. And even though we might take it with a grain of salt, and we might laugh back at you, or laugh with you with the joke, it doesn't take away from the effect of what the words can have. Or maybe I'm just a softie, I don't know. But
you're absolutely right. Like, okay, a little bit of backstory. Growing up, for me, I was always the smallest, slimmest in my family. Everybody had something, like, either, hit some type of body part was more developed than the next, or whatever. Or it was just like everyone was just, big. I was always the smallest. So for me, I was very chest heavy, but I was very skinny. So weighing like 80, 90 pounds with a heavy chest is just like, you would get picked on a lot. Being skinny, like, hey, you need to gain weight. The amount and measures that I had to go through for them to try to help me gain some weight was crazy. The most ridiculous thing ever. There was a moment where I did gain weight at one moment, and then they started to be like, oh, that's because she's doing something she's not supposed to be doing, that's why she gained weight. And then in the stress in that, I remember I blacked out. I was just like, this, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And then the next year I lost it. And I was just like, oh, so what's the issue? What's the cause of this up, come to find out, I have a overactive thyroid. I was like, oh, so it's like a health concern, but it's not too much of a health, like it's not something that's detrimental. Yeah, so instead of assuming, ask questions in a way that is not hurtful. And that's what sometimes people don't understand. It's easier to make a joke and to laugh about it when they don't know. And that was the problem in Luther's case. Because later on, they were just like, yeah, Luther was a diabetic. That's when I remembered, oh snap, Luther was a diabetic. Luther did have diabetes.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
It's a struggle.
And then it's not only just a struggle that he dealt with, his entire family dealt with it. Like, when you really like look into the family history of it, like that is something that it can be hard to shake. And the idea that he was able to deal with it, with however he was able to deal with it while also still pursuing his music career, just speaks volumes about what he was put on this earth to do. And he didn't let, his body define him. And I thought that was amazing. But I also feel like the way that we talk about celebrities to a degree, even now, when it comes to the choices they make, or if their bodies are changing, we don't know what's going on. So I feel like unless you are in a place to ask them, you should just leave them alone, because these may be celebrities, but at the end of the day, they're human beings as well. So yeah, something that I did want to address in the documentary, to change it up a bit, I should have put it in the other order, because on his first album he did have the cover of A House Is Not a Home. And this was Dionne Warwick's song originally, which was something I did not know. Here again, I grew up thinking this was his song. And so to find out that this was his way of paying tribute to someone that he deeply admired as a singer, in Dionne Warwick, was just absolutely amazing. And of course, she comes from a royal family of singers as well. But just the idea of him performing this song for her, and her being in the documentary and being able to talk about it, was just like absolutely amazing. And of course, at any random point in time, you can be on TikTok and then all of a sudden you'll see him and this performance from the NAACP Image Awards of him singing A House Is Not a Home live. And he's just standing there in the suit, just singing. And that's it. And Dion is happy. They keep putting the camera on her. She's almost in tears, because she's just so honored. And in the documentary, she stated, "Look, this is the definitive cover of this song, and you can have it."
Yeah. Who else is going to
So,
sit here and do that like Luther? Nobody
at all.
right.
I didn't. It's crazy. I did not know that this was a cover, and I did not know that Superstar was a cover.
Oh man, yeah.
Right.
I was like, hold on, what? Because I love the music of old, because people would take it and make it their own.
Mm-hmm.
And lately I've been saying I just love how black people put seasoning on everything, songs included, because Luther ain't have to do what he did on Superstar. He ain't have to do that. Whitney Houston, we're not even going to talk about the Queen of Remix over there.
Right.
Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, Higher Love. I forget the other ones. Oh, I'm Every Woman. It's just like, this is why I'm like, I see why they mad they not us. I see why they mad. But that was like a mind-blowing thing to me. Like, not did you only do one, but you did two covers, and you made it your own, and it sounded like they were your songs. Especially
Superstar. And he has an album actually called Songs, which are him doing just straight covers of other people's songs. It didn't get a lot of attention as far as I was able to see in terms of research, but I do know he made one. He made a cover of Love the One You're With, and it sounded like a gospel song. And that was featured in the documentary as well, because he performed it live with a choir. And And because I'm a choir junkie, because I was in choir growing up, I was just like, oh yeah, let's go.
Come on for the
So
choir.
Come on now.
exactly. So it's just like the idea that he could just take people's songs and just make it a whole lot more and add extra seasoning to it, like you said, Krista. Like he was really good at it. And just the idea that you can add extra seasoning to a song that already has seasoning on it. Like
Yeah.
Dion is seasoning, but then you add your seasoning and it's just like yummy.
More.
Yeah, Luther was like the Trinity to that song. He was like the bell peppers, the onions, the all of that. He was the extra zhuzh to that
Oh my
song.
gosh, tell me about it, because because the thing is, for her to pass the torch to him and say that like his version was definitive, spoke volumes. Also, anyone who had a heart, that was another Dion cover.
Yeah.
And now when they went into detail about Superstar, you know what I mean, that was a cover from a group called the Carpenters. Like even my dad knew about that, knew about that. And so the thing with theirs is that theirs was, it was a more sped up version of Superstar. And whereas with Luther, he slows it down because it's all about the anticipation. You know what I mean? And so like, and throughout that song, it's nothing but like, certain peaks and moments. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like that, like out of all the Luther songs, that's my all-time favorite. And also, he even did a cover of a Stevie Wonder song. There was a song called "Creepin'" that was on 1985. That, come to find out, I didn't find out till later. That was a Stevie song from like the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did his own version. So the thing is, Luther, when you talk about somebody who's the king of covers, he was definitely that guy. You know what I mean? So Superstar is my definitive go-to. Like the way that Billie Jean is for Michael Jackson, and when Doves Cry for Prince, Superstar is like that for me when it comes to Luther.
Yeah, it's so.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Krista.
No, I was gonna say I definitely agree. I think what drawn me more to Superstar, funny but not funny, is I think it's coincidental. And I don't know if they matched it that way, but the woman of the Carpenters, I forget her name, she also had an eating disorder. She passed away from anorexia.
Karen Carpenter.
Karen Carpenter. She passed away from anorexia. So if you've seen that clip of how skinny she was fighting anorexia the entire time. So you have a person who's fighting this unhealthy relationship with food, and then you have this person who is fighting this unhealthy relationship without food. So to see that, I don't know, like in my mind it paralleled, but I just had to make that connection. Also, Superstar, I feel like I was more drawn into Superstar. Like I said, I have the Pandora radio station. There was a live segment of Superstar when he was performing at Madison Square Garden, and he just let the pianists have her solo spot. And mind you, that performance is probably about between 8 to 12 minutes long already. And when I heard that pianist and how he was just doing ad-libs, it's just like, Luther, like, why couldn't we got married yesterday? Like, it was just like the most amazing thing. Like, his voice is just so timeless. Like, I feel like moving forward, I need to see documentaries like that. Like, it touched on everything, and the undertone of the whole thing was his weight and his relationship status. But it still touched on the success of Luther Vandross. And it was a sad part of it, of course, where he said that Any Love was like his anthem because that's what he wanted. He never had love. He never could experience love. And my heart broke for the assistant when it was just like, I hate that song now because he wasn't just looking for love. He was looking for any love just because he wanted to experience it. That was the sad part for me.
That was the sad part. And going back to Vaughn's point about, and you guys' point about the covers, like, I'll never forget the first time I heard Stevie Wonder's version of Creepin'. I was just like, why are you singing Luther's song? Because I heard Luther's version first. Here again backwards. But either way, I was just like, I heard Luther's version first, but then when I heard Stevie's version, I was like, okay. And then the fact that Luther sang background for Stevie Wonder's song, Part-Time Lover, like it's almost like it's not a duet, but then it kind of is one because you can clearly hear Luther da 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 da, and then Stevie comes in with his part, and I'm just like, this is just nuts. So much talent, just too much talent. Oh God. It's so much. But yeah, in getting to Any Love, like that part really got to me because that's a song that I love to listen to, that I get excited about because it's somewhat upbeat but still very much kind of slow. Um and you know, I like the song too because to a degree I was just like I thought maybe it was just him just having hope for the idea that maybe I can have this type of love. But then when they showed the version of him performing it live and the way that other people were talking about it, I was just like, oh, so this isn't that type of vibe at all. I've been listening to it with, I felt like I was listening to it with the wrong vibe for so very long because I was just like, whoa, so he was longing for something that he felt like he couldn't have or just never got to have in certain aspects of his life. And it's really, that part really did make me kind of just sit down for a second and just think about, the differences in how life was then for
Mm-hmm.
people. And it was just like, man, like that is just so sad. Like I wish that it could have been different for him. I really do. Because for someone to sing so beautifully about love, for someone to have all of these songs that people use in weddings and sing for their significant others and put in, and then for people to use his music, sample his music, put it in rap songs that give off love, within that, only for him to not have that romantic love, it's just like, wow. It's really sad.
It's a sad thing, and I feel like everybody should experience love. Like, it's crazy we're talking about this because I just shared a story from BLS. It's on the website now. That my coworker wrote. I just shared it on social. How Patti LaBelle was disappointed about her portrayal in the documentary, but I'm just like, you were the main one speaking about Luther Vandross' sexuality. You were the main one who came on and was like, yeah, Luther was gay. Luther wanted this. He couldn't have that. And this, that, and third. We spoke about it. And I get that that's your friend and you want him, you wanted. I don't know what the reason or the purpose was behind it now, like since he's passed. But you can't really be upset at something that you've said on TV or multiple times before. Like you you said it on Andy Cohen, sitting in between Sam Smith and Andy Cohen. Like, how are you upset at the fact, like when they talked about his sexuality, like how did you think you were not going to come up when you're the main one? Don't get me wrong, I love Auntie Patty.
Me too.
Love Auntie Patty. Seeing her at Essence Fest, amazing. But you're a celebrity, like you have, things are recorded, things will come back to bite you in the face sometimes, unfortunately. And I know you didn't mean no malice or no ill will or no bad intention behind it, but you still said it. You still talked about his sexuality. Maybe that's something that he wanted you to take to the grave with you when it's your time to go. But for you to just kind of out him, although he's not here in the present, in the physical, it just shouldn't have been said.
Absolutely not. Certain things you just, like you said, just carry to the grave with you. As much as I love Patti LaBelle, she's an icon and everything like that. But the thing is, I realize words are weapons, death and life, and the power of the tongue. And so the thing is, every word that, like type of word that you speak is going to be recorded. And the thing is, for somebody to sit there, as she was super comfortable, being on a Andy Cohen show like that, to say that, I'm like, and this is because this is for, what I mean? And because a lot of times people will say things about somebody that's not here that they would never say in their face or in their presence, but while they're still around. You know what I mean? So like if Luther was still here, like, I'm not speaking for him, but the thing is, if he was still here, especially with the age of the internet, I seriously doubt that Patty would keep the same energy that she had, with those interviews. So it's just like, you put those words out there, and so when they come back like a boomerang, you can't be, dumbfounded, I guess, surprised by it.
Yeah. And I remember when I first heard her say it, I was just like, huh? Like I was just like, why would you bring that up now when he can't speak on it himself? I literally feel like whenever you speak on something, which is why I feel like documentaries like this and interviews where people are speaking on celebrities who are no longer here, it's like they draw like it's like you walk a fine line because of course you want to be, you want to speak about the comfort that you had with this person, but at the same time you also have to know where to stop and you have to know where the boundaries are. And in that moment, as much as I love Patti LaBelle, love her down, like that wasn't her place to say that. Like as far as like nobody in the circle in the friendship circle ever truly said anything about his sexuality. Like people had wondered about it for years, but even he said in the documentary in a past interview that it's none of y'all damn business. And honestly, it should have just ended there. Forgive me, but either way, it should have just ended there. Because when somebody says it's none of your business, it's none of your business, and you just got to live with that. And yeah, I remember hearing from my parents that whenever he would come for concerts, girls would scream over him, and love his voice because, he would sing about love and give off the impression he was singing to them as an entertainer, you know. But either way, regardless, that should have been what truly mattered. And even, and I feel like he should have had control over that. And if he's not here to have control over that, then don't talk about it. It's not your place to. And I just really wish that he lived in a time where he felt like he could have his success and truly be who he was. And I can't help but think about the parallel of his story along also with Whitney Houston's too, to a degree, because there was a level of success that both of these people reached, but did not necessarily have a love that was healthy for them or a love at all that was truly authentic to who they were. And it's just so sad. Now, of course, now it's a little bit different, but at the same time, I really wish that they could have freely been who they were. Because there's a part of me that hopes that maybe that could have, I guess for me in a selfish way, like maybe that could have kept them here to a degree, but I don't know. I'm not in charge of that. But either way, I wish that they had felt okay enough and loved enough to truly be who they authentically were. Um, but I know they have that freedom now wherever they are. So, in speaking of that, another thing that I couldn't believe was how long it took him to win a Grammy. Um, it was so funny that even in one of his live shows, his background singer saying "It's about time." I was just like, that is so hilarious, but so sad. Like the Grammys. But what's so funny is that when they kept showing every time he was nominated for a Grammy and didn't win, it was like the categories he were in were always so stacked with talents, like Terrence Trent D'Arby, even though I know he doesn't go by that name anymore, or like James Brown, or like Stevie Wonder. So it was always heavy hitters back then. But the idea that it took Luther such a long time to even get one, maybe even two Grammys is just nuts to even think about. So, how did you guys feel when y'all found out like it took him so long to get one?
At this point, we squaring up because why he had been
Right.
nominated 9 times and he went on the 10th time. What? Because what? Why we at this point we squaring up? Because do y'all not know that this is Luther effing Vandross? Like, I'm so confused. Like, to this day, I'm surprised that Diana Ross has never won a Grammy. Ever. Diana Ross has no Grammys to her name. Very surprised. So for Luther to be overlooked 9 times out of 10, that was the most craziest thing to me. Craziest thing to me. And then when he won I think the Grammy that he won for again was, I think, when he was working with Richard Marx. Shout out to Richard Marx because pen game crazy.
Yes.
And he couldn't even really enjoy it because that's when he had his stroke. I'm not saying that was like the first Grammy that he won, because like you said, these were the first two. But that last one that he won, he couldn't even enjoy it because he was recovering from a stroke. Like, I don't understand what the Music Academy was about then. I mean, some of us still don't understand it now, but that's another conversation for another day.
You know what? I was talking about this because, see, for him to get nominated and for them to play in his face 9 times like that, not only are we throwing hands, we pretty much throwing feet as well, because you know what I mean, stomping these size 13s to whoever was in, whoever was in charge of the voting committee. Because the thing is, of course, I'm glad he finally got that Grammy for here and now. But if you look at some of his absolute best years, were in the 80s, in the same time frame as Michael's Thriller, Prince's Purple Rain, Bruce Springsteen, Madonna. It's just like, I know the table was super duper stacked, but for him to be overlooked that many times, it was just like, I mean, come on now, like that, like it ain't no way. I get it. The talent pool was deep, but come on, there had to be a certain point, like in whatever that Superstar, the album Superstar was on or whatever. At least he could have gotten an R&B album for that. Let Michael have the pop album for Thriller and all that type of stuff, but at least let Luther get something for one of those. You know what I mean? So it's just like I said, and the Diana Ross thing, I was very surprised to even hear that. But yeah, like I said, for him to finally get it, but come on now, like there's that and the thing is, for Luther to still not be in the Hall of Fame yet, is mind blowing. So hopefully this documentary will be a vehicle for that to come to play.
Yeah, he has a star. He's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No,
not yet. I don't think so.
Not yet. So he's got the Hollywood Walk of Fame star, but in terms of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, no, not yet. That's, like I said, that's another thing about them, not the 9 Grammy snubs and stuff like that. So, like hopefully this will be a vehicle, like some of the documentaries will be for other people like to go in. Hopefully this will be a vehicle for that. But I'm just saying, like, still, yeah, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's insane how some of these institutions, take such a long time to give Black artists their things, because, oh my gosh, I'll never forget when Whitney passed. I actually found so many Facebook pages that were sharing stuff about her, because I was in deep sadness off of that. And I remember finding one Facebook page in particular that was called Induct Whitney Houston into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was active for many years until she finally was. So the idea that it was active, that page was active for about, maybe, I want to say, at least 6 to 8 years after she had passed, pushing for her to get inducted. And when she was finally inducted, that was when, they, just unplugged the page. And just the idea that there are so many artists that are just put in a box in terms of the genres and not honored the way that they deserve to be. It's like Beyonce really hit on something when she had Linda Martell saying genres are a funny little concept, aren't they? I always go back to Cowboy Carter. That's just like my new
Cowboy
favorite.
Carter is that's another conversation too. No, but you're right. Like I didn't know that Luther was inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame in 2021. Okay. But for you not for them not to induct him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, after all of the jingles, after all the songs that he's written, after all the people that he's been a part of, after all the rock and roll celebrities he's been ad-libbing and singing background singers for, like,
why did it take so long for him to get in the R&B one is my question, because 2021?
Yeah, 40 years since his first album. Artists, like, come on now.
But you have to remember, like his album, technically speaking, it wasn't that long ago, but it was that long ago. If your first album's coming out in the mid 80s, mid 80s, like, it may seem like a long time, but literally, I'm born in 90. You understand? Like, right.
I was born in 93.
Okay, so that's 35, 36, and 33, 32, or 31. Yeah, 31. Like, that's not that long ago. So I could understand like why it kind of took a little
Thank you for
while.
saying that.
I'm sorry.
Thank you
Sorry.
for saying that, because I can't tell you. Oh Jesus.
I'm sorry, but it's not. It's not that long ago
Thank
when
you.
it comes down to thing. Like it may seem like I could see if Luther Vandross' first album came out in 1958 during the time where
Hmm.
segregation was a really really heavy thing, and
Right.
they wasn't even trying to hold black music to a high regard and saying like they have now. And it took him that long to be inducted in the National Blues and Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame in 2021. I can see it, but
Yeah, you're
really,
right. You're right.
1985. It's really not that long ago.
81, 1981, but still, yeah,
81,
You're right.
yeah,
still not
You're
that long
right.
ago.
yeah, and
You're right, Krista.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's true.
You're welcome. I had to put in perspective.
That's right,
You're right. You're
respectfully.
right. You're
And
right.
one
I'm
more thing,
sorry.
one last thing also, because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, their criteria, because the thing is, I keep tabs on this stuff, because because I'm like one of the people who does the fan votes, right? So like usually they be send me emails as far as like as far as stuff like the list to vote for and things like that, right? And so got kept tabs on like when LL finally got in, like when Whitney finally got in, right? Their criteria is at least 25 years since your very first album, free the first time to be eligible, right? And so I kept tabs with his first album, official album, 1981, whole time, yet to be even on the ballot, right? And so like that, like I said, so that right there, and Whitney, criteria wise, really, she should have gone like in 2010, 2011, because her album came out in 85. So, so like when it comes to, the people that are behind these, boardrooms and stuff like that, that's just, what I mean? Like that's just mind blowing, like to realize that. So, you need to do better.
Yeah, yeah, it is mind blowing, but at least he finally did get it. And what's so funny is there was that cute moment his background singers did have. And something that I did appreciate was seeing footage of his live shows because, sadly, I was never able to attend a Luther show, but my mom, shout out to her, was able to attend two of them, one by herself and one with my dad. And she just always,
I'm
spoke
jealous of your
highly.
parents.
Oh, please. If I could sit here and tell you all of the people that they have seen,
First of all, my
Jesus.
bishop told me that she saw the Jacksons perform one year, and her favorite one is was it Jackie? Jackie or Jermaine? It wasn't Michael. I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, what?" But neither here or there.
Like, if I could just sit here and tell you the list of people that my parents have seen, like it would just make you want to just cry. But yeah, like my
Probably
mom
seen them
saw.
too. Don't get me wrong. I've been to a lot of concerts. I've probably seen them too. Just the ones who are not here no more. I never saw. Never saw
Yeah,
Michael. Never saw Luther. Never seen Whitney. Did I see Whitney? Never seen Whitney. I've
yeah.
seen. I feel like I want to say I've seen the Temptations. I feel like I want to say that.
Oh
I feel
wow,
like, but
cool.
who knows? Okay, we continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, like, just hearing how they felt, at his shows and everything. So seeing the shows pop up at in the documentary and just seeing how intricate he was with their rehearsals and how one of the musicians said, you were happy to come to work because you knew he was going to crack that whip, but you knew he did it out of excellence. And I appreciated that. And even when they went to London and he had the background singers dress up in those beautiful sparkly green dresses, like he was just very intricate and very thoughtful about his performances, in a way that was very unique for the time. And it makes you think, about the people who we see perform to higher standards even now. And it makes you very appreciative of Luther and what he did for back then for live shows and just how he reached for excellence in his live shows. So I really love that. So that was a really cool part to hear about and to put together in my own life, just hearing my parents talk about it and finally visually seeing it. And then I found a clip on Twitter that somebody posted of an audio from his final concert where he was singing a verse of Missy Elliott's Work It, and it was the funniest thing I ever heard. He called the song a masterpiece. and I was cackling on the phone. Do you hear me cackling? So I do recommend for those who are watching this, if you have not found that clip, please go find it. It will make your day and it will make you laugh and cackle because hearing Luther Vandross sing Missy Elliott's Work It, it's just like, bruh, it's nuts. And it also makes me wish that he had more time with people of the newer generation. Because could you imagine the amount of music this man would have made with
Oh, I
newer
said the same
artists?
thing. And come to
Oh,
find out, aside from Luther Vandross singing Missy Elliott's Work It and being a part of that, y'all knew Luther was a wrestling fan?
Yes.
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 Luther was me. It'd be like, oh, SmackDown is on. We gotta stop this. I used to stop everything. A 90s kid growing up in the 90s outside playing with your friends in the summertime. I'd be like, oh, it's 9:00. I gotta go. Monday Night Raw is coming on. I see you tomorrow. Or I see you when I get back when I'm done. Like, I didn't know that he was such a wrestling fan. Now imagine Luther in WWE. Like, hey, Randy. Imagine him in WWE. Like, imagine him singing Lift Every Voice, because we ain't gonna do the national anthem. Let him sing Lift Every Voice.
Absolutely.
I'll be them called the Holy Ghost.
Let him sing a entrance song. What?
Oh my gosh.
Imagine,
now you know he would have been
imagine
in
the
the audience last night.
I'm gonna say at WrestleMania, him singing somebody entrance music.
Come on now.
Like, he could really revamp Bianca Belair's "I'm on My Own."
You know, he could have been on the New Day track.
Yup.
Brand new day, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
The way I would have literally been praising or something, because Luther and singing themes, he could have been the new, because he's so good at jingles, he could have been the new CFC. What was it? CFC band who was doing their songs, or
yes, Def Rebel.
We would have had bops. Okay, bops.
Endless bops.
Oh my God.
Endless bops. Like, it's no changing. Like, who want to change from a Luther Vandross theme song?
Come on now. Like, this dude even talked about even ordering WrestleMania. Can you imagine if Luther had sung it like WrestleMania 3 or WrestleMania 4 or something like that at the height of his game? Like, come on now.
Okay.
Like, I'm sad because they got Aretha Franklin to sing for them twice. How did you miss Luther doing America the Beautiful? Like, that would have ate.
Oh,
first of all, them ad libs, it just gave me chills, because I already know what them ad libs would have been hitting for.
Ooh.
He would have been on a riff, a good 3-minute riff in America the Beautiful.
Nice.
And then on top of that, he would have been in the audience last night. Y'all know he would have been there last night at Raw on Netflix.
Oh,
for sure.
Absolutely.
He would have been sat there.
If y'all tuned into everybody last night, I would have literally threw the TV across the wall if I would have saw Luther Vandross sitting in the stands.
Dressing is absolute
just to the 9, okay? Mm-hmm. I would, Rockin' Luther would have had a shot.
Come on now.
Oh yes.
Just saying.
Yeah,
I would have been in tears.
Ugly cry, boo-hoo, snot coming out the nose, everything, like unhinged behavior.
Unhinged all day. Luther in Vegas? Come on now.
I need to go because we're not doing this right now. We're not going to stay here and do this.
Look, we have so much to still cover, but at the same time, I understand the excitement. But, you know, even in the industry, like, he would have been amazing on a song with Victoria Monet, because they both have, you know, the same type of meticulous hearing with her as a producer and a songwriter. That would have been an amazing deal. And even if he had the chance to work with Beyonce a whole lot more, like, he did a duet with her at the beginning of her solo career. Like, could you imagine? Could you imagine how much more they could have done together had he lived? Lord. Crazy.
You know he would have been on this Cowboy Carter, right? You know he would have been on Renaissance some way.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yes. Him on Renaissance would have ate all the way down. Lay the house boots down.
If you know the rumors and stuff were true about sexuality, that Renaissance album, I feel like he could have did a remix of Church Girl.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that would have been spilt. But yeah, it's it's just like like the thing is he created such a
oh,
blueprint for so many people. You know what I mean? It's just like you want to talk about a what if. You want to talk about a huge what if when it comes to Luther Vandross in terms of music wise, in terms of today's landscape. Oh my! And the thing is, like, I know Usher had a song on Confessions called Superstar. It's like every time I see that title, the first thing I think about is Luther. Usher did a nice version of his own, but nobody touches that 1983 Superstar.
it's so funny. Like if they had mashed that together, oh God, I would have just wept.
I need to
Cause
talk to,
it's
I need
just
to talk to one of
because
my DJs that do a
Superstar,
mashup of that.
Superstar is like one of my favorite Usher songs of all time. Like if you play that song, like I am just like if anybody like oh my God, if my boyfriend played that song before he proposed to me, I'm passing out. Um, hint. But either way,
Hint. Boyfriend, you hear that? Hint.
That'd be my proposal. That'd be my honeymoon song, if anything. Shoot.
look, oh
Come
my
on now.
God.
Mm.
But it's just thinking about that is just really lit. But then they also in the documentary discussed his jump from Arista Records to J Records, which at the time during the 2000s, hip hop was becoming more of its own thing, and R&B was sort of it was almost they were making it seem like if you didn't necessarily combine with hip hop, then you didn't necessarily transition as well to the charts during this time. So Luther was looking to sort of branch out more as an artist, so he moved to J Records that was owned by Clive Davis, who was the famous manager of Whitney Houston and also Alicia Keys at the beginning of her career. And Ruben was also on this record label as well when he won American Idol too. And that was how I found out about them. So, in the midst of him signing with J Records, he made the self titled album Luther Vandross. And when I say this is like one of my favorite album covers ever, it just is. Like, you got the blue background, you got the palm trees. He looked like he is ready to just have a great adult life. In this picture, and it had Take You Out, which is just an iconic R&B song of the 2000s. It also had Can Heaven Wait. It also had I'd Rather, which is one of my deep cut favorite Luther Vandross songs. Like he came out here ready to slay the 2000s with this album, and here again, it ages well. You can listen to it now, and it sounds very current in terms of dealing with relationships in life and longing for love and asking people out. And I'll never forget in his music video for Take You Out, it was Garcelle Beauvoir, just to bring it back to the Jamie Foxx connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for a minute, growing up, I thought maybe they was going out for real, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, me
that's
too.
sweet."
Me
But
too. Me too. I remember
it
watching this
was
on
sweet.
BET, like BET when we had music videos, watching on BET, watching the BET. What was it? The one to come on at midnight? I can't remember it now, but
Midnight Soul,
no,
Midnight Love.
Midnight sounded like it was Midnight Love.
That's what it was.
And then
Yeah,
Luther being on 106 in Park and dropping the video off.
Yeah.
right.
Like
They
for
showed
you to be
that
on 106 in Park.
with AJ and Free.
Come on now.
Uh,
Exactly. You know what I mean? So I mean, yeah, like that was definitely a revival of his career. And the funny thing about it was that, even early on, Luther on the other end, Luther was known for, for reviving other people's careers like he did with Aretha Franklin. You know what I mean? So like as far
Right.
as that. So here it is, like a full circle moment where he's having his own sort of, excuse the expression, renaissance, if you will, resurgence rather. You know what I mean? So as far as that, I mean, this was definitely, much needed. It was a preview of what we could have had further down the line. So we talk about what Luther, could have been now. That album would have been like the beginning point of of what we could have seen.
Yes, absolutely. Like this album was so good, and just the fact that he was, being more modern, even to the point to where even Jay-Z, excuse me, had a song called Excuse Me Miss, what's your name? Himself, of him singing, whisper singing the song or whatever, and asking a lady out or whatever, like talking about how he got two dishwashers. Um That's like the funniest song to me. The funniest part of the song to me. Like, I got two dishwashers. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? But I mean, I guess it's impressive depending on who you are. But but just having that, and then having Pharrell, produce that song as well, who was a great in and of himself as well in music. Like, it's just Luther's start in the 2000s was pretty lit with that album. And just for me, I felt like, it was very current for me for where I was as an R&B listener, because in the 2000s, that's where I became more exposed to R&B and more hip hop as well. So it was just a nice little time for me growing up and learning what that was. Because here again, I'm late. So
I mean, you're not
either
that
way,
far
it was a
behind
good
though.
entrance.
You only got 3
Yeah, you really
years.
not.
You 3
Yeah,
years
you really not.
behind me, 4 years behind Vaughn. You're not that far. You're not
Yeah,
that
you
far.
really ain't.
You still there.
Yeah, you're right. But just in all of that, it was just really beautiful to see where he was going. But in the midst of him trying to create his second album, which was Dance with My Father, he was up and down with his weight again. And his friends were talking about that in the documentary as well. And in the midst of all the stress that he was dealing with trying to finish the album on time, and trying to plan shows and all of the above and promote what he could have been doing, he got sick.
Suffers a stroke.
Yeah, he suffered his stroke. And it was very devastating to hear. I know, like, I remember when it happened, it was all over the news. You couldn't really like escape it at that point. And a lot of people were very worried about, what could have happened to him in that regard. But of course, they addressed in the documentary that he was rehabbing and trying to come back, even though there was levels of himself that wasn't the same in terms of speech or in terms of other things. But they did say that he was able to still understand people, and hear them speak, and also still understand music to a degree as well. So he rehabbed for a number of months. And in the midst of him rehabbing, his album, Dance with My Father, was released. And this album wound up being his final one, but it had a number of great hits on it, like Think About You, which was written by Alicia Keys. And he had Lovely Day on there, and then he also had the song Dance with My Father. And in the documentary, they talked about, for the first time, what his creative process was behind writing this song, and knowing that, and just telling the story of his life and how much he loved his dad, and how much he just enjoyed the relationship he had with him, even though it was cut short because his father passed when he was 8 years old. And just, if you've ever heard the song, it is very, very heart wrenching, and it's very real. And then in the music video, since he couldn't be in it due to his condition, he had people and other celebrities and family members dancing with their fathers in the video, because even Beyonce was in it dancing with Matthew. So this was probably the most one of the most authentic songs he had ever written. And his mama said in an interview and said that I didn't even know he remembered any of that stuff. But the idea that it was put in this song, like, she just cherished it. And even hearing it now, it just makes you think about um, people who are close to you, um, that you might miss on another plane. So this gained a lot of acclaim and a lot of fame during the time in which he was rehabbing. And of course, it did wind up winning him another Grammy that we did mention, that was accepted by Richard Marx, who wrote the song with him. And he accepted it. But then Luther had a video where he talked about how he wished he could be with them to accept the award, but he said, you know, when we say goodbye, it's never for long because I believe in the power of love. And he sang that part. And my dad got excited at that part because he was just like, oh, this means he on his way back. But, you know, either way, this was an iconic body of work. So, Krista and Vaughn, how did you guys feel the first time you heard Dance with My Father?
For me, I loved the song, but it, like you said, it was also a sad time because it was really around the time where he had his stroke. So he wasn't in the video. So they had all of these people who loved Luther, who had their dads in it. Beyonce and her father was in it. You had Garcelle Beauvoir sorry. And then you had all these celebrities and they're like just reminiscing about their dads and sharing photos of their dads if their dads was no longer around. It hit a little bit different as I grew older, like as I lost my father. Like I never danced with mine, but I get the sentiment behind it. And to touch on like the when Richard Marx accepted the Grammy, there was an interview that he did with that Luther did with Oprah, and when he was just like, I'm just living in this new phase, knowing that this is the end. Like he knew that he was not going to recover from this. And for Dance with My Father to come out, and he wanted that solely for him and his mom, it was like, damn. It's like, damn, are you giving up, or you just solely know like this is it? Like you solely know that you have to go on to the other side for this song to be this song and this album to get that pop crossover that you was looking for the longest while. So it's kind of eerie in a sense, just like Sam's Cook, A Change Gonna Come. Bobby Womack said, "Yo, this is an eerie song. Like, what do you like? What's going on? It's so eerie." And then a few days later, Sam Cooke ends up being murdered in a hotel. Like, I feel like a lot of these celebrities have premonitions and they know when their time is coming up, so they need to put out something that's going to leave that staple behind. And Dance with My Father is definitely one of those staples for Luther Vandross for sure.
Yeah, so it's crazy that Stephanie happens to be talking, like this this part of the podcast talking about Dance with My Father, because I'm, simultaneously watching NXT, and there was a segment with The Rock and Ava.
Watching it right now too.
Absolutely, yeah. Right. And the thing about it is very funny how that plays out, right? And so and the thing is, when it comes to Dance with My Father, like, my dad and I have always had a tight relationship. I mean, I'm named after him, first off, like, I remember when I was a kid, like at my elementary school, they even had like this like father son breakfast before, you know what I mean? So that type of thing. So those type of memories and relationship I still have with them to this day and always, right? So that is always, that song's always going to hit differently with me. And it was great to see the video. They even had Damon Wayans, in the video with his kids, right? And so everybody that that was tight with Luther, even Beyonce and everybody like that. But the thing is, when it came to the song, we know now, it's just like, it's a bittersweet type of thing, and also like just to see, like when you realize, like they said in the documentary, this is where Luther planted his flag, and so and then just because apparently, like, he knew, like, look, this ain't gonna be long. Just like when Michael did This Is It. Like, you could like, you already tell the title of it spoke for itself. Like, he knew, like, this was gonna be the end. This is gonna be my my swan song. And so when it came to that, for Luther, like, apparently he knew, like this, the hourglass was running out, and so like I said, it's great. It's great to hear, but sometimes, like, looking back, it's kind of like hard to knowing that this is the finale. Like, I mean, like I said, it just hits differently.
Yeah, it definitely does hit differently. And my condolences to you, Krista. Um, and
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my
yes,
condolences to you as well.
absolutely. Like because I have watched people close to me have to deal with that type of loss, and it is one of the hardest things ever. And I am And the thing with me and my dad, like me and my dad, our thing was that we watched wrestling together because he was the one who got me into it. And um me and my dad, it's like even though we're different because we just have different personalities, I just feel like I love my parents so much. Like it's always been us. And also my sister as well. Like it's always been us. So the idea of going through that type of loss is just like I just can't even imagine it. So I just try to cherish as much time, as possible because you just never know. And, but the thing that always stays with me is that that love is always there and it always connects you. And clearly, when it came to Luther, he was writing that song and he created this album from a place of love. And the love that he shared with his father, is still very much real. And even though, he was sick and all of the above, and he couldn't really enjoy the success of the album that he normally would have, in a well mindset, there was still the idea that he made this accomplishment, but he had made his peace. So, in making peace with that, as he, even still tried to recover, but still making peace with that, um, he passed away in July of 2005. And I remember where I was when I heard the news. I was at my big mama's house. And my mama had, well, actually, no, my cousin had picked me and my other two cousins up from Girl Scout camp. And so we came home to Big Mama's house, and then mom was getting ready to pick me up. And then the news was on, and they had announced that he had passed away. And my mom just gasped, and she could not believe it. And I could kind of see that she felt a way about it because, of course, this was an artist that she loved. Um, and then my dad, I found out he was at work when he heard the news. My dad famously said that when he found out about it, he went outside the parking lot and yelled a really bad word. So, you know, people have their ways of mourning in the moment. And yeah, it was just a very real outpouring of emotion that took place on the radio. You heard his music everywhere. You couldn't escape it in that, aspect. There were tributes all over. And as a kid then I didn't fully process it, but the older I got, the more I really begun I had a it's like I knew I appreciated his art, but I was still little and had not matured, enough to fully appreciate that art. But now that I'm much older and over the years, I totally get it. And in the documentary, they showed his funeral and the outpouring of emotion of seeing fans, even touching his hearse, and everyone who came out to sing at the funeral, along with Dionne Warwick speaking at it, Sissy Houston, Whitney Houston's mother, singing at it with the choir and everything. It seemed like it was a very beautiful service, but his friends stated that, they were just too full of emotion to really even process what was going on that day, which I completely understand.
Yeah,
Um,
Valerie Simpson said
yeah,
she was not herself that day. She didn't even
right.
remember, like, she don't, her memory of that day is kind of like, like you
Blurry.
remember where you were. I don't remember. You said it was July 20, 2005.
2005. Yeah.
So I was 15. July, it depends on when, because I know July was my mom's birthday month. So I don't know if I was like with her. I feel like it depends on the date that he passed. I feel like I was probably with my mom because she probably came down to visit or something. Well, I do remember being outside. I probably was outside, 15 years old, or still outside. I do probably remember being outside somewhere, but I don't remember where I was when I heard it. And that's probably a sad thing for me because I kind of remember where I was like when other people passed away. Aaliyah, I remember I was in the house. My brother came in the house talking to my sister, like, yo, Aaliyah passed away. I saw it on the news. Biggie died on my 7th birthday. So I know that. Yeah. Tupac, my brother loved Tupac. So I remember that. Michael Jackson, don't even get me started, please. I just know where I was. So for Luther, like, I really don't remember where I was or how I heard that he passed on. Now I'm gonna have to go and try to unlock a memory. But it's still like it's still a detriment. It's still sad because Luther was so young.
Right.
He's only in his 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Like 53 or 52 or something. Like he was 54. Like, I'm just like, yo. And then I actually was years later, I wasn't at the funeral. I actually was in the church that his funeral took place at to see an in-person conversation with Angela Davis. And as I'm looking it up, I'm like, yo, this is the same church that Luther Vandross they had Luther Vandross service at? Like, wow, right up in Harlem. Like, it's such a, I don't want to say it's such a sad thing, just to quote Superstar, but it is. Like, it is such a sad thing to know, like, he has so much more life to live. And because he put so much stress on himself, trying to please others, and those conversations weren't had, we lost him at a young age. Lost him at such a young age.
Yeah. Speaking of remembering where you were, I remember where I was when I found out that Luther died. Matter of fact, it was in the summer. I was going to the mall with my parents, right? And I was 15 going on 16, July 1st. So my birthday's July 20th. So, might as well say 16, like round off. So we just, I just happened to be driving and, get the news and find out about it. You know what I mean? So like because I grew up, listen to his music we talked about early on. You know what I mean? So and so like to find that out just so sudden, it was painful because Luther, he was 54. Matter of fact, he died 4 days before my dad's birthday. My dad's birthday is July 5th. So he died 4 days before my dad's 52nd birthday at the time. Right. So Luther was born 1951. Dad was born 1953. My mom was born 1954. Right. So, like that close, age wise, like it was just insane. And so, and the thing is, as far as Michael, I know I was working at Target at the time. So I think I was off that day. Yeah. Yeah. So
I was working at Target at the time too. I didn't know my mic was muted.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's 2009. I was working at Target at the time. I think I was off that day or whatever, or just gotten off and found out that Michael had died. And here's another mind blowing thing, right? So we're talking about this. Prince died on April 21st, I believe, 2016. That was the day. That was the day after what would have been Luther Vandross' 65th birthday. So yeah, and I remember that day very well. So like when it came to Luther, oh absolutely, I could almost remember receipts, almost receipt in terms of like where I was and stuff like that. So it's still surreal to realize this dude is still not here, and what more we could contributions we could have seen from him as far as being not just a singer but also a songwriter and producer for much of these other artists that will follow later on. I mean, imagine him doing songwriting for Usher, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, and and other people that you could think of that you could name. I mean, like, yeah. So as far as remember where I was, absolutely.
Yes. So in the midst of all of that, since I think it's very poignant how this documentary was aired on television on New Year's Day, and it's 2025, which now marks 20 years since he's passed. And I am watching this documentary and watching even just the way it ended and watching all these people talk about how much they loved him and just talk about how musically he just gave so much of himself. It just meant a lot and it just gave so it just showed so much. I feel like it was just filled with all the love that I felt in my heart for Luther and just knowing that other people felt the same, it just felt really good. So it was definitely an emotional watch for sure, but his life was well lived. Though it was short, it was still well lived. He did what he came here to do, which was be himself, be excellent, and be an amazing singer. And as far as I'm concerned, he is the king of R&B. Like forget what you heard about anybody else. He is the king of R&B, and yeah, he gave what he gave, and what he gave was great, and his influence will live throughout the generations. And his music speaks to that, his impact speaks to that, and this documentary speaks to that. And I'm just really happy that now we live in a time where we can go back and look at documentaries and look at music and even listen to current music and hear his voice and his influence. Like it's not lost on me that in the midst of all the drama with Kendrick Lamar, we got a song where he sampled If This Love Were Mine. Like like that's something that, just doesn't that just it's not lost on me at all. So I'm just really grateful that we had him for as long as we had him and we still have him even though it's not in the physical, and we can live our beautiful black lives and love his music and love him forever, for always, for love. And with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching live, thank you. I know there's a lot of other stuff going on, especially even NXT happening. Like, oh my God. But either way, thank all of you so much for watching this very different episode of HWP Extra. Thank you guys, Krista and Vaughn, for coming on and talking with me about this and being game to even do an episode like this. So can just tell everybody where they can find you and follow you and what you guys got going on.
Okay, you can follow me, Miss Krista B, MS underscore KRISTAB underscore on Instagram, MS underscore KRISTAB on Twitter. You can follow those wrestling girls on every streaming platform. Also, make sure you follow my other platform, Unapologetically Eclectic. I am doing my 3rd annual Take Up Your Space. Take Up Your Space, this brunch and panel. The tickets went on sale today. So yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a women empowerment brunch and panel, but the guys can come out. They can come support these women, these talented, amazing, beautiful Black women, and stand around us as a part of the community. So please make sure you follow me everywhere. And Steph, thank you for having me. I love talking music and documentaries and Luther and everything. So thank you.
So, of course, you can follow me on Twitter, as it says on the bottom of my name, at 301 King Vaughn Jr. You can follow me on Instagram at Mr. King Vaughn Jr. I'm the host of the Victorious Ones podcast. We consistently do episodes on of course, on Wednesdays, about 8:05. And so, and of course, you can follow the show's Twitter page at Victory Pod 1. And of course, you can follow the show's Instagram page at Victorious Ones podcast. And so of course, I'm going to be doing an episode coming up this week in terms of giving my review of Raw on Netflix, and also on my show on my podcast. I've done a Luther documentary review after I saw the special screening back in November. And so as far as that, like I said, those are some of the main things I'm doing. I'm also finishing up some articles about New Day as well as Randy Orton, just to name a few. So of course, I'm going to be updating my top 50 wrestlers, lists sometime after WrestleMania. So those are some of the things I'm doing as well. So there you go. Always here to support. And thank you very much, Steph, because I've been looking forward to talking about this. So thank you very much for this platform.
Absolutely. And of course, y'all know you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter/X at Queen Steph Hardy. Listen to the show, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and other episodes of HWP Extra everywhere you get your podcast: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of the audio places. Go and find it. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, with the logo that you see in the corner over there. And just check out my episode that I did put out yesterday about the Raw on Netflix premiere, because it was a time and it was great. So please go listen or watch that. And just continue to be on the lookout for what else I might have going on. Read all my articles at dailyddt.com, and just continue to support your girl as we continue to change the game. I think a new episode of Steph and Cat Talk Wow will be coming out tomorrow as well, so be on the lookout for that. Unless, of course, we announce that there's a schedule change, but either way, be on the lookout for that as well. And thank you guys so much for watching this very different episode. And of course, and if you have not watched this documentary, please do. It's very emotional, but very joyful at the same time. And if you love Luther, you'll love it. So, of course, this has been the Hardy Wrestling Podcast Extra with your girl, Stephanie Hardy, and Krista B and Vaughn. And until next time, bye, y'all.